Okay, good morning, everyone. Again. Today's session is about working with PubMed Reporter and Insights. So building on what we have learned last week, we know that there are already a lot of ready features that you can use in Web of Science and Scopus. But there are still other things or other tools that we can use to make our analysis more interesting or provide more aspects about analysis. So today, we're going to look at PubMed Reporter and Insights and see how we can use them to do bibliometric analysis, and also know how to connect the data in these different systems. Very quick refresher about what bibliometrics can do. And we talked about our report already, right? So basically, 4 major themes. We'll talk about productivity, or the how many publication part, and actually that's the thing that we have just reviewed, okay? And we also talk about the collaboration, and this one we have to rely on other tools like Sci2. We also talk about the topic analysis, and then we also talked about the citation impact. So basically, these are the 4 major areas that we do in our core report or IC report. But we also do a lot of other things, okay? Some of the questions that we got a lot, including like how do we evaluate individual author or trainee or grantee? Say, for example, are my grantees still publishing? Do our grantees keep doing what they were funded after their grant ended? Or is there a difference between 4-year funding and 2-year funding in terms of the fellows' research performance? Or are they still publishing with the same people as when they were grantees? Or are there enhanced or expanded relationships? Or they want to know the top authors in the specific field. Are there any gender disparities? Or they want to know the specific institute, department of program, or office, or lab. How do we evaluate their performance? Or talking about funding, which institutes or countries work together on specific topics, or which funding agencies are funding together on the topic. Or they want to look at specific landscape from the very high level, looking at how have the research topics evolved over time, or what other subtopics of a research is being done under an umbrella topic, okay? And generally the impact, how good are we, okay, how are we doing? So you can see that a lot of these things actually have to do with grants, okay, grants, activity, or specific resources allocation, talking about how they spend the money. So I think it would be a good time for me to share with you the workflow that I usually have. Okay, so usually I will get some sort of names, usually maybe PI names, or particular department or office or lab or program names from an IC. Okay, I can also get the grants and branch name with the combination to match them in QVR. I know that not all of you have access to it, but this is the place if you would like to match grant number with specific branch, not just IC, okay, specific branch or even program office, that's the place that you have to go. All right, there are times that I can directly just get the grant numbers and then get the publications from reporter. That will be easier. I don't have to do the matching of like grant number and office. Okay, so that's one of the steps. And after that, I will have to go to other databases to look at maybe citation, percentile rank, citing articles, research topics, things like that. And RCR, something that I have been asked increasingly to include in my report, and I will also talk about that in other sessions. Okay, and if we have to do network analysis, that's another tool. If we have to talk about other part of impact analysis like guidelines, are any guidelines citing that research? I have to use PubMed. Or maybe look at patents. Are there any patents citing that, okay, cite that research? And I use another tool called Lens.org. Okay, and maybe in the future, if there are other tools that connect to other impacts that we can connect together, you're going to see other things. Okay, we're going to have a larger chart. But basically, this is the flow that I generally have. And when I'm lucky, I can just do some sort of a publication search here. Okay, maybe from Web of Science or Scopus or PubMed, and then do the following things. All right, so generally, this is the workflow that I have, and I believe that you're going to have other flows and maybe use different tools. But you can see the input here and some of the analysis that we can do, and then the output. All right, so let me focus on the PubMed now. For PubMed, there are some very good things that I like about PubMed, but it also has some limitations. Okay, for the string, first of all, it's free. Everybody has access to it. Although you may not have full access to the articles, at least the structure is there. The metadata is there. You always have access to it. Okay, the second best thing about PubMed, I think, is the PMID number. Okay, unlike those unique number in Web of Science or in Scopus, PubMed is a number is searchable across platforms. You can use PMID number to search in Web of Science. You can use PMID number to search in Scopus. Okay, but you cannot use Web of Science session number to search in Scopus or in PubMed. Okay, so PMID number is the one that you can search across the different platforms. Another thing about PubMed is that it has a lot of clickable filters because of the back-end structure that they have. So a lot of time you can just click on those filters and then do a lot of very easy filtering. And that helps with analysis. Say, example, if you would like to focus on animal study, if you would like to focus on clinical trials, guidelines. Okay, so these are clickable filters. So you can just click on that and get a number. Okay. Another thing about PubMed is that it has very clean U.S. government funding information. So basically, you don't have to clean that funding information at all. Okay, so it provides you with complete U.S. government funding information. I have to emphasize that U.S. government funding part because if you would like to find something else, say, for example, something that is in private sector, Bill Melinda Gates, you won't be able to find it. For some other international major funding agency, you maybe find some, especially in UK and Canada, but that's probably the two major countries that you will be able to find in PubMed funding agency. All other places, like in Asia, Asian country, you won't be able to find it yet. Okay, so the limitations. There is limited affiliate information as well as the country information. That's because PubMed only started collecting the affiliation and country information of all of the co-authors since 2014. Before that, they only have the information for the first author. So you're going to see incomplete information in affiliation and country part. Their backtracking, still, it's incomplete. Okay, so for the affiliation and country information, you don't want to use the PubMed information. And then there is also limited funding information. Although I said that it's very clean in terms of U.S. government information, but for other part, as I mentioned, private sectors, other international agencies, it's very limited. You won't be able to find it. Okay, and another thing is that when we do bibliometric analysis, we wanted to see citation count or other metrics, but PubMed is not designed for that. Okay, so it doesn't provide any citation metrics information. You can say that it's scope. You can also understand it as one of the limitations. Okay, so this is the part about PubMed. Okay, so to use PubMed, I believe that we all know how to get the PMID number. Once you search that, you can get the PMID number. Okay, there is also the part about guideline and practice guideline. I'm just assuming that you know it, but I still want to highlight a difference. Okay, so guideline is the broader one. Basically, it's more like the rules or the policy part. Okay, but the practice guideline is more about the clinical part. So when you talk about the citation impact or the impact of your research, you can select both, okay, guideline or practice guideline, or actually guideline is a broader part. If you select guideline, it will include practice guideline. But if you want to have something that is more specific, then pick practice guideline. All right. So you can use either number to represent another type of impact of the research. Okay, just to see how many guidelines cite the particular research or how many practice guidelines. The last part that I use a lot about PubMed is the mesh terms. So as you all know that PubMed or Medline use mesh terms to describe the articles that they collect. Okay, so a lot of time when people think that those subject category from Web of Science or Scopus are not enough, they wanted to see something in more detail, and that's when we go to PubMed to use the mesh term. It's a little bit complicated to extract mesh terms, and I know that we use different tools. Chris uses R, I use eUtilities and Linux to get that, and it will take another maybe 5 sessions to learn that, so I'm not going to show you to do it now. So if you are interested in getting mesh terms from a set of articles, let us know. Okay, all right. So I want to highlight some of these features that we use a lot in PubMed in doing bibliometric analysis. Okay, the next one that we use a lot is reporter, especially when you have something that is related to grants. Okay, so when we go to either of these different databases or systems, I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is that these systems serve different goals, and that's why they have different designs. So say, for example, for Reporter, it's a system and repository of both intramural and extramural NIH-funded research. So basically, it's a repository and a system, okay? But for Web of Science and Insights or Scopus, what we have seen last week, it's about, okay, a system database that provides publication metadata and metrics. So you can see that for Web of Science and Insights, the focus is about the publication metadata and metrics. But for Reporter, it's a repository of research. So it can be a lot of things. Okay, it can be the grants, the PIs, their applications, okay, and also the publication being included, but publication is just part of the things being included in Reporter. And metrics is not one of their major concerns, although they might have something at the end, but it's not really included in Reporter yet. Okay, so you can see that people will want to know how I cross from Reporter to Web of Science or Insights. If I get information from Reporter about the PI, about the grants, about the publications, how do I get the following things? Okay, so what does the Reporter have to offer? So this is the tab that you will see when you go to Reporter. Okay, you will see that you can search based on the project, the grants. You can search the publication. You can search the patents based on iEdison. I would say it's a little bit limited because it's only U.S. patents and also the things funded by NIH. Okay, there's also something about clinical trial, and they got the information from clinicaltrial.gov. They have some visualization part that you can use. They also show some map, especially the country from those program projects. Okay, if there are some news, they will include it in here. So a lot of things that you can do in Reporter. But as I mentioned that when we do bibliometrics, our first focus is on publications. So I'm going to focus on this part. How do we search publications? Okay, so you can see that the publication here, you have a lot of fields that you can search. You can search by grants, by projects, by PI, by IC, by year, or even put in specific text to do search. So any field that is here, you will be able to do some search, okay? Or if you know the PMID already, say for example, you have got a list of articles from PubMed, or maybe your client provides you with a list of PMID numbers already, you will be able to put in the PMID numbers here and then do the search. Okay, so once you get those grants or PMID numbers, you will be able to download the data from Reporter, and it will be something like this. Okay, you're going to see the grant number, and you're going to see the affiliation, and you can see that a lot of blanks, okay? And that's because a lot of information is incomplete. There is the author, there's a country, and you can see that the country is only for the first author or the PI. Okay, so here if it is the publication, this is only the first author. Okay, but there is the link to the article, okay? And there is also the journal information, the PMID information in publication year. So these are the things that you can get from Reporter. Okay. And some of the limitations that I've mentioned about Reporter is that, okay, the first thing is that they only list information that you can find in PubMed or PubMed Central. So you can also say that it's the scope. All right. So there are times that maybe some of the information that you found maybe only in Web of Science or only in Scopus, that you won't be able to really find it here. And there is no citation metric information. There is limited affiliation country information. And for the funding agency information, it's good, clean, but limited as well. Okay, so this is the part about the Reporter. And as I said, for the funding agency part, you can see that U.S. government agency is the most complete one. But you can also see something, especially United Kingdom and Canada and Austria. Okay, some of the major countries, or especially, yeah, England and Canada. All right. So how do I get more information on citations, on who cited my research, my citation impact, on collaboration, funding agency, research topics, alternative metrics, things like that? You can see that you won't be able to get those information from either Reporter or PubMed, right? So we really have to rely on other tools, especially like those vendor databases, Scopus, Web of Science, or maybe even Insights. So last week we talked about the features that Web of Science created already for us, okay, including the citation report and the major features here, the two tabs here that you can do quick analysis, and then you can do the citation report to get the basic citation count, the average, edge index, things like that. You can also save it to get the metadata. You can also get the usage count, some sort of alternative metrics, right? So you can get that already. But if you want to get something that is even more detailed, okay, something like the percentile, or maybe journal impact factors, or maybe other normalized, more advanced metrics, where are you going to get them? Okay, and that's the time that we have to understand the limitation of Web of Science and move on to other places. Okay, so again, this is just kind of like a refresher. Limitations of Web of Science, you know that, okay, the strengths, okay, They provide an overview of citation metrics. They provide charts, graphs. They provide some sort of a grant and funding agency. Not clean, but at least you know that it covers a lot of things, not just U.S. government information. Okay, they provide usage count. When it's about the country information, it's all of the co-authors, not just the first authors. Okay, they also provide you with the entire metadata. As long as you're patient enough to download that, that's fine. Okay, and you can also save your results to insights up to 50,000 records at a time. So you can actually do a lot, not just 500, 50,000. So save a lot to insights. All right, limitation. The author data is not clean, okay, because of the various way people put in, or maybe the requirements from the publishers. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of different entities even for the same person. There is also incomplete data about the funding agency, which I'm going to show you later. Okay, so it covers a lot, but there is still the limitation. They also have very few paper-level citation metrics. So you can get citation for each specific paper, but you don't get anything more than that. If you would like to see something more specific for one individual paper, you don't really get it. Okay, so you have to use other tools. And that's when we move on to insights. Insights is basically one of the tools or the system associated with Web of Science or under Clarivate. So the first thing that you want to understand is that they actually share the data behind them, meaning that we would assume the numbers that you get from Insights and Web of Science should be consistent. If not consistent, they should be very similar, okay? But that's an assumption. Okay, so we'll talk more about Insights, okay? But please keep in mind that they share the data. All right, so what does Insights have to offer when we do bibliometric analysis? This is the platform or the portal page when you go into Insights right now. They're going to change it this year, so you're going to see something different, but currently it looks like this. So when you say, remember when you save your data to Insights, and then you have access to Insights right now, right? Okay, you open it up, you're going to see something like this. Okay, you can go to your folder and then select the file that you have just saved and then open it. So there's several tabs that you can get started. I usually start with the research areas because that's a thing that I do a lot, but you can do anything. Okay, so you can look at people, organization, regions, research area, journal, and funding agencies. Okay, so as I mentioned that Web of Science and Insights share the data, okay? But Web of Science does not have a lot of article level indicators. Basically, they give you the citation count and that's it. If you want to get further information about individual paper, Insights is a place that you have to go to. Okay, so it includes citation count. It also includes a lot of different normalized citation impact scores, okay? So they will tell you how good the citation is, your citation is compared with a specific field, compared with the journal, compared with the world. So they're going to give you this normalized scores, okay? They also give you citation percentile. They also provide journal impact factor of each of the article in your data set. So a lot of time people are interested in looking at their journal impact factor of their publications. If you do not use Insights, you can do that in JCR, but you will have to search one by one article at a time. If you have 5,000 articles, you're going to do tons of time to do it. Okay, but in Insights, you just get it in seconds. All right. If you have a group of articles that you would like to get group level indicators, you can do that as well. You also get that in seconds. Okay, they will tell you the average citation and also the percentage of the documents that have been cited. Citation percentile, they will give you the average percentile. They also tell you what is the top 1, what is the top 10, what are the highly cited paper. Okay, they also give you the number and percentage about collaboration, either international collaboration or industry collaboration. They do those calculations for you already. So all you have to do is just to get the number. Okay. They also provide you with other number, highly cited paper, hot paper, H-index. So a lot of the things that you can get for a group of papers. All right. So the strength of Insights, I think, is that it's very fast. Once you have your data set, you can get all of those information in seconds. And it's very easy for you to pull out a quick report. Okay, so it's very fast. They also provide you with some graphs and charts. If you like it, you can use them. If you do not like it, you can use the information and create your own charts. Okay, they also provide you with a lot of different metrics. Another thing about Insights is that you can create your own custom data sets. Remember that you can save something from Web of Science to Insights. That's one way to do it. But you can also create your custom data sets. For example, if you have data sets from Scopus, from PubMed, or from other resources, you can custom it to do it. I'll show you how to do it later. Okay. Some of the limitations, okay. Articles that are either too new or too old are not included. Okay, so right now, anything that is before 1980 are not included. So if you'd like to do something 50 years ago, you won't be able to get those impact factors or the percentile things here. Okay. They also have the unclean data about author because they use the data in Web of Science. Okay. They also share the same problem about the incomplete data about funding agency, which I'm going to show you as well. But I think the biggest problem is the inconsistent subject categories. Web of Science has a subject category, remember. They assign journal that they index with several multiple subject categories. Okay, so any article appeared in the specific journal will inherit those subject categories. And because the Insights use Web of Science data, you would assume that the subject category would be the same, but they are slightly different. Because Insights reclassify 2 categories, and that 2 categories can change a lot of things. And I'm going to show you these things later as well. Okay, so the strengths, okay, I talked about that already. The custom data sets, okay. There are 3 major identifiers that you can use when you want to create your own custom data sets. You can use the Web of Science core collection accession number. The example would be like this, WOS and then number. And I think I showed you already, when you download the Web of Science metadata, there's a field called UT, and then you can get all of the Web of Science accession number. And you can also get this number from the website. It's just that you will have to copy one at a time. Okay, so download that, and that will be just in one field. You can also use PMID number. It's just that you have to add something, midline column in the front. This is the format that they recognize. Okay, so you have to use that, or you can use PMID number. So you can use either one of them, okay, any one of them, or use a combination of them, and use that, save that either as a CSV file or as a text file, and then load it to Insights. Okay, so this is how you can do your custom databases, data sets. Another thing about the Insights, as I mentioned, is the tons of the metrics that they provide. So these are the things that you can see, as I mentioned, that a lot of the paper-based or article-based metrics, okay, talking about how many articles are being ranked as a quartile 1 or quartile 2, things like that. All right, this is about basically the same thing. It's the number or the percentage here. And then you can get all of these things here when you select the different metrics that you're going to see. International collaboration, citation impact, top 10%, top 1%, okay, category impact. When you download all of the paper in the specific data set, this is what you're going to see, okay, the title, the authors, the journal article, the journal title, the research areas, okay, and then also the journal information, time cited, and then all of these different normalized citation impact scores. And here is the percentile in subject area. So this is how we see the percentile ranks. So here, Insights use the invert percentile, meaning the smaller the number, the better the rank. So this one, 0.55, means that it's a top 1%, okay? And here you can see that the journal impact factor here. And once you download that, it will be a CSV file, so you can turn into a spreadsheet, you can rank them, and then you can do your own graphs, top 1, top 10, anything. Okay, so this is what you can get for all of the individual paper. All right, limitation. Are there data missing? Let's look at the funding agency one. Okay, so this is one of the projects that I did earlier when I looked at a project in OD. They wanted to look at the specific grants that they have funded. Okay, so I cleaned a lot of information from both Web of Science and PubMed to get this chart. Okay, but when I go to, when I went to Insight, the result is like this. Okay, and I want to highlight the difference. The one by GMS and NCI. Okay, so after cleaning, the GMS is 102 articles, but Insight has only 11 articles. And NCI has 74, but Insight only show 8. So it's a lot different. And you wouldn't feel comfortable at all in providing this kind of information to the client. And I wanted to figure out why. So I went back to the data sources. Since they rely on the Web of Science data, I had to go back to Web of Science. Okay, so I pull out why they are different. So this is just one of the examples. Okay, so in Web of Science, they have the funding text part. Okay, so basically they grab all of the acknowledgement text and put that into the funding text. So this is the whole text. So their algorithm is that they're going to get anything that is that said that's supported by or support from something. Okay, so you can see that the funding agency include this. Okay, CCSG, P30, blah blah something. Okay, and then there is the National Institute of Health. Okay, here, and then here. So here you will see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the 5 agencies identified by Web of Science. And actually, these are the same thing being used in Insights. Okay. When I look at PubMed, this is the funding agencies that PubMed listed. And remember, PubMed is very good at U.S. government agencies. So it identified, okay, AMS, okay, there are 2 different grants here, 3 different grants actually. Okay, there is NCI, there is also NCRR, okay, OD, okay, a lot of the OD grants. So these are the things, okay, so you can see that OD and NCI are the things that are not really identified by Web of Science here because of the algorithm that they use. They do not know that CA something is from NCI. They do not know that S1RR is from NCRR. Okay, so they do not know it, they do not identify that, and they do not know that when NIH AR also means that it's NIAMS. And that's why you see a lot of NIH here, because they did not really go into the grant to see which agency really fund that research. They just took the name at the face value. So NIH is NIH, all right? And that's also why all of these other agencies are not being recognized in this table. So basically, it means that when you go to Insights, you don't want to use their funding agency to do your analysis. Okay, so that's the first example. The second example, here, again, this is the funding text, all right? So it's supported by NIH grants, so their list, okay, 3 grants are listed. Okay, actually 4 grants, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you know their algorithm, you can probably imagine that Web of Science is only going to grab NIH as the only funding agency, right? Okay, so yes. Okay, Web of Science only recognize National Institutes of Health, and also the 2 other things here. Okay, Center for Diagnostic and Therapeutics and Georgia Research Alliance. And these 2 are not recognized by PubMed at all. So, okay, another good thing about Web of Science or Insights, but for NIH, it's a lot of problem. GMS, BIB, NCR are not being recognized here, right? Because they only said it's NIH. But when we do funding agency, each of these institutes would be very sensitive to what they have funded. So they wanted to know they are being given the right credits. Okay, so we have to be very careful about all of these funding agencies here. And as I said, Web of Science and Insights share the same data. We usually assume that these things are the same. Okay, so you have to be very careful about the things that you use in both databases. Another limitation is about the co-authors. Okay, so for Web of Science, it displays all of the co-authors, no matter whether you have 20, 50, 100, even for the group authors. Okay, you're going to see all of the co-authors. But in Insights, when you download the individual papers, only the first 5 co-authors are listed. And even when you download it, you only see the first 5 authors, meaning that when you download it, you won't be able to create your network analysis on that. Okay, you lose so many authors here. Okay, so it's another limitation. You don't want to do network analysis using Insights data. All right, subject category. Okay, 2 examples here. Okay, so here is a session number. Okay, and you can see that if you get the data from Web of Science, their subject category would be multidisciplinary sciences, and these are the category of this article. But when you go to Insights, you're going to see slightly different things. Neurosciences for this article, the first article. For the second article, it's basically the same, but the order is different. Does it matter? May or may not. Let's see. Okay. Remember that when we download the Insights data set, you're going to get these things: article title, first 5 authors, the article journal, the research areas, and also the most important to us is the percentile in subject area. Okay, do you ever wonder which percentile, okay, which subject category does it really represent for when there are more than 1 subject category? Okay, there can be multiple subject category being assigned to the journal, right? So when there are multiple subject category, which category is being used for this? Okay, based on their document, it says that the percentile ranked here is the one that has the highest among all of these categories. So they did calculations for all of the categories, but they only list the one that has the highest. But which category? Again, their document says that is the first one listed. Okay, so the first one listed in Insights should match the percentile linked here. So the percentile represents this specific category. If there is more than one, say for example, there is psychology, multidisciplinary, there is psychology, so this one represents psychology multidisciplinary instead of other categories. Okay, so this is based on their document. Okay. But as I mentioned that, I have to go back here. If we download the metadata from Web of Science, you're going to see the different category. Okay, so the problem is that if you use the Web of Science category to draw your charts for your first page of the report, the category is going to be different when you use Insights to look at the percentile ranks in your almost the final page of the report. And it's going to be inconsistent. Okay, so you want to make sure that you use the category consistently. If you use the Insights category, then you say that you use the Insights category. If you say that you use Web of Science subject category, you tell them you use Web of Science subject category. All right. And when we look at the percentile ranks, make sure that you know you're talking about the Insights subject category and the first one, not the first one in Web of Science, okay? Because the order in Web of Science has nothing to do with the order in Insights. So very confusing. You want to make sure that you have two sets of data downloaded, but they can mean two different things. All right? Okay, so this is about Web of Science and Insights and how they are using different classification systems actually without really telling clearly to the users. So I want to direct you to their document about how they reclassify two major categories. Okay, so multidisciplinary sciences and medicine, general, and internal, these two categories in Web of Science are being reclassified in Insights. Okay, and then they only use the first listed subject category in Insights to represent the percentile ranks. So these are the things that I would like to highlight here. Okay. So for the reporter publication data revisited, okay, I just wanted to go back there again. Remember that we're going to see the green number, the article number, the year, and a lot of things. So when I have these things, how do I go to Insights or Web of Science or other things? Remember the PMID number? Okay, that's the one that you should use across a lot of different formats or platforms. Okay, so to search PMID number in all of different things that you can, there are a lot of ways that you can use, okay? So for PMID number, if you want to search PMID number in Web of Science, the string that you want to use is that PMID equal and then open parentheses with all of these PMID number or them and then close parentheses, okay? Not complicated at all. You have a whole list of PMID number in one column, okay? And you put OR in another column, all right? And you just select them. You don't even have to use any function to connect them, okay? You just select two of them and then paste them into advanced search in Web of Science, okay? Just copy, select, okay? Select, copy, and paste, okay? Open parentheses, close parentheses, and do the search. And that will appear in Web of Science. And once it's searched in Web of Science, you can save to Insights. So that's the first way. Okay. I think Web of Science says that they can take at least like 6,000 PMID number, but I can usually go more than that. So just try. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you can just paste. Okay, copy, paste, and do that. And the second method is that, remember, when you have the custom data sets, you can have midline, column, and PMID number, and then do your custom data set. So same thing, you have one column doing midline, column, okay, and then another column for all of the PMID number, but this time you're going to combine them. You use the concatenate, okay, so put them all together and then into one string. That would be one file, and then you can just upload the file to Insights. Okay, so there are several different ways that you can do that. And once you get to Insights, you can just play with it and get a lot of different things that you can do. So that's for how you can get from Reporter to Insights and other things. One of the major warning, of course, is that when you have to go across different databases, there is always data loss, always. Okay, and the data loss can range from maybe just a few articles to tons of articles, depending on how big your data set is. Okay, so make sure that your clients understand that there's always data loss, and they accept that, and there's always a good reason that you don't want to use all of the different databases, unless you have something that you really like to pursue, like that I know all of these PMID numbers and I'm willing to compromise or to lose some data. Okay, and then you can move across the different disciplines. Okay, so this is basically what I would like to cover for the parts of my slides. Now I would like to go live to show you about Insights. Okay, so remember we talked about the things that we do in Web of Science, and then that we can save. Okay, we can save our results to Insights, and when you go to Insights, I'm just going to here. Okay, it logged me out again, so I have to log in again. Sorry, it took a while. Okay. All right. So when you go to Insights, as I mentioned, that this is the first thing that you will see. Okay. There is a part about analytics. There is a dashboard, that things that you have created. Okay. Or you can look at specific organization. But I usually just focus on analytics because these are the things that we do most. Okay. You can look at specific people, organization, regions, and research areas, and journals, and funding agencies. And as I mentioned, the limitations of Insights, I usually just start with the research areas. Okay. All right. There is the folder about the files that you have saved. There is a limit of 20 data sets max. So if you have more than 20 data sets, a message will pop up asking you to delete some before you can move on. They don't really care about the size of the data set, but the amount of the data set, how many data sets that you can have. So you can have some really huge data sets, but it has to be under 20. Okay, so there is the one about NIBIB that I have just saved. So I can just click on that, okay, and then open it up. And let's go to the research area. Okay. All right. So you can see that the layout is somewhat close to what you have seen in Web of Science. Okay. But there are a lot more choices. So on the left here, they will tell you which data set it is. Okay. And of course, you can select from here as well. All right. And then here is the thing that you would like to work on. Okay, it's about the research areas. Okay, and there are some filters about the times that you don't have to worry about that because we, saved the files here already. But if you would like to manually change that, you can change it as well. Okay, so there is a slider that you can use. Okay. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that you want to look at the specific schema that you're going to use in doing research topic analysis. So when you click on that, you will see that there is a down arrow that you can click. Means that there are several different systems. Okay, so you can use the system of Web of Science, meaning that they said that they're actually using Web of Science subject category. Okay, there's another one about essential science indicator. So it's another different system. Okay, there are other systems, other classification systems here, which I do not use that much. Okay, but you can just play around and see what are the results. Okay, so for example, if we would like to see the Web of Science subject category, you just want to make sure that you click on here. Okay. So here on the right, basically you're going to see all of the subject category from Web of Science. But you can see that it's not everything. So you want to make sure that you got everything here. Load more items and keep loading them. I think they only give you like 25 a time, so you have to just do it again and again and again. Okay, so now it's everything. Everything in this data set, okay? For those of you who would like to use the inside subject category in your report, this is a place that you're going to download it, okay? And use the Web of Science count. Use the document count here to create your charts, okay? Remember, the categories are different right now, okay? And if you would like to stick with the Web of Science subject category, you can do that. Just acknowledge that you're using a different system. All right, so you can download it and do it. But remember that we want to look at the percentile ranks and other things, their journal impact factors. How do we get to that part? Okay, so here what you're going to do is to look at the benchmark part, okay? So you click on that. And you want to, okay, I forgot one step, sorry. Okay, let's go all the way down here. Okay, so you have to select one of the category, okay, and then say that you're going to pin to top. When you say pin to top, meaning that you're going to group something together to the top so that it's going to help you to do further analysis, okay? You're going to pin to top, but you want to select all of them, okay? And then pin to the top. If it is more than 100, they're going to ask you to do it again. Okay, so you pin them to the top and then click on the benchmark and said that you want to look at the baseline for all the pin items. So now you see that there is another thing popping up, talking about all of the documents being pinned, being grouped together, and basically this is the data set that you have. Okay, so if you click on that, you're going to see the individual paper. It's so hard to see. Okay, so here is the individual paper. Okay, the article title, the first 5 authors, their journal, their research areas, okay, and then all of these things, and then the percentile here, the journal impact factors here. And again, the percentile just matched the first one in this category. And if you download that, it would be a CSV file. Okay, when you open it, it will be something like this. Okay, it has the accession number, okay, the DOI, the PMID. That is the format that you would like to use if you would like to create a data set. Remember the midline column and then the PMID number. So that is the field. Okay, there is the article title, the author. Again, only 5 authors listed here. Okay, journal, research area. So this is a research area. And then you can get all of these numbers if you would like to use the percentile, the journal impact factors. All right. So when I have to do that, okay, I usually have to select all of these things and then resort them based on the percentile ranks. Okay. From the smallest to the largest. Remember, they use the invert percentile. So you want to start with the smallest, meaning that it's the highest impact. Okay, so now you get the smallest number, okay? And then a little bit of a manual thing based on how you are going to classify your percentile ranks, okay? If you would like to have top 1, top 10, top 20, top 50, you're going to group them in those different ways, okay? So say, for example, all of these is going to be top 1, right? So you're going to have another column, you just say it's top 1%, okay? And then all of these to 10 would be top 10. And then top 20 or below something, okay? So these are the things that you can do manually, and it shouldn't take long, maybe just 2 minutes, okay? And after that, you can create your charts. Okay, so these are the things that we do a lot in Insights. Okay, another thing is that if you have research category here, I'm going to copy them. And remember that we talk about usually there are more than one subject category, okay? And when you make your charts, you don't want to show all of these subject category because it only matches the first subject category, right? So how do you do that? Of course, you can do a lot of other things. For example, if you know the strings or other functions that you can use in Excel, you can do that, or maybe just a trim. When you trim them, you just want to look for the first semicolon and then trim that. You can do that. But there is something very easy that you can use in Excel function. Okay, let me make it larger. Okay, so if you go to the Data tab, okay, there is something called text to columns, okay, and then you just select delimited, okay, and then they ask how you're going to separate your strings, okay, and because these strings are separated by the semicolon, I just click this one, okay, and then click next. There is a preview. Basically, you're going to see that after each column, they're going to be pushed to different field. Okay, and finish that. You will see that the first column, okay, the first topic remain here, and then the second, the third, the fourth, if there are more than one. Okay, and these are okay. I'm going to hide these. This is the category that match your percentile ranks, and then you can do your graphs charts. Okay, so this is for the Web of Science, no, I'm sorry, Insights documents and the things that you need from Insights. And then I wanted to quickly show you other things that you can use in Insights. Remember that we talked about there are a lot of impact factors, scores, or metrics that you can use in Insights. Where do you find them? Basically, when you look at this wheel here, you click on that, okay? This is a place that you can manage your indicators, okay? There are a lot of indicators and you can browse it, okay? They have different categories about productivity, about impact, about collaboration, about other. About productivity, so you can get either percentage or the raw number, okay? Talking about, they have break down the journal by their journal impact factors into the 4 quartile, okay? So the first quartile, the second, the third, the fourth. You can also click on that, how many top 1% of a paper in your data set. If you want to list that, you can click on that, add this, okay? If you want to see hot paper, you can do that as well, okay? And then you can see that these numbers are being included in here already, okay? If you want to do more, you can browse again, like say, for example, we'd like to see how many international collaboration, how many industry collaboration. These numbers can be very interesting, especially for people who are doing, like for doing public health. They wanted to know their international collaboration. Or for funding projects, they wanted to know if they have any international collaborator as well, or collaboration from the industry. So these numbers can be interesting as well. And you can see that all of these numbers are being calculated directly from insights. So you don't really have to do anything. My last warning, my last warning for using insights is that you don't want to just take these value, take the face value of these numbers, okay? They are fast, and when they are done correctly, they can help us a lot. But as an analyst, I think we have to keep in mind that these data may not always be correct. Or maybe the data are correct, but the way they handle the data may not be appropriate. Remember that when they're doing their category reclassification thing, if you do not really understand how these categories are being reclassified, you don't really know which category is being represented, and you're not really getting the right number. And there are also times that their calculation can make some errors because of the algorithm that they provided, okay? So it's possible when you download your own data from here. I'm sorry, I'm going to cancel that. From this data set, okay? You can download the data, and then you can build up your own chart, right? So you can do your own calculation, how many top 1, how many top 10. You're going to assume that the number is going to be the same as the one that you have here, right? Because that's how they display the data. But you're also going to realize that it's not always the case. And when it is not the case, I would encourage you to talk to us or talk to Web of Science or Insights to know what's going on. Do not just use either one of the results, because you don't really know which one is correct, or maybe neither is correct. Okay, so you really have to double check. In the ideal case, it's that these two numbers match, okay? That would be great. Okay, there are times they do not match.
From your experience, how often?
We'll talk about that later. Okay, but I would like to I just hope that you will keep in mind that when you're doing analysis, the ideal case is that these numbers match, but it's not always the case. And when it happens, make sure that you stop and think about which one you would like to use, or which one is more appropriate, or do you have other better solutions? Okay, all right. So this is basically what we use most frequently in insights in Reporter, in PubMed, in creating our reports. So I'm also going to stop my recording right now. And then I can take other questions. Okay.